Anton of Pentagram Chile. Welcome to 69 Face of Rock. How are you doing today?
Very good. Very good. Thank
Excellent.
you.
You don't release albums too often, so what made you decide the time was right?
It kind of came to us. It was I have some weird feedback in the background.
Hmm.
Maybe you turn your volume down a little bit.
I just did briefly. Okay.
All right. Yeah, we started writing our album before the pandemic. We had a couple sessions, the whole like 3/4 of the band. But well, we were all pretty busy, so it didn't progress too fast. And then the pandemic happened, and I was writing an album for another band, for Lockup, band I'm part of, and for some reason, some riffs started to emerge that to me sounded more like Pentagram than anything else, So I said, well, okay, I'm gonna start putting them in a folder, and I did that, and they started piling up, and at some point I realized that I almost had enough material for a new album, Before the pandemic, we just didn't have the time. We were all involved in different things, whether it be bands or jobs or whatever, But basically the pandemic gave us the time to actually do this, So we started working remotely with my drummer, and then when the restrictions were lifted and I could go back to Chile because I was in Spain, when I could go back to Chile, we got together, we arranged the songs. Our guitarist came up with another 2 songs that ended up on the album as well. And yeah, so it just came to us, It wasn't really that we decided to do it,
Time-wise, how long did it take you to shape these songs into an album?
Well, I think if you just consider the time that we spend writing and arranging and recording, it's not a lot of time. I mean, we could easily do that in less than half a year, probably. But the way things are, the way life is, the people are busy with different things, it doesn't always allow you to just set the time apart for just one project, So in this case, from when we actually started, thinking about a new album to now that it's going to be released, it probably took 2 years, something like that.
That's not so bad. What goes inside your head when you write music specifically with Pentagram in mind?
I just try to kind of reconnect with the teenager in me, with that feeling that I got when I first heard Seven Churches or Hello Waits or something like that, that really, I don't know, it taps into a feeling that is very deep, and it's difficult to describe probably, but I want to conjure up the same feeling, with my music, with Pentagram music. It's just old school, no happy riffs, and it's just conjuring up that rage, that thing that you feel when you're a teenager.
Funny you should say that, because I mean, I used to love your demos when I was a teenager.
All right.
School. And the new album actually has that feel. I mean, I think it's an unspoken classic.
Well, thank you for that, man. I would say we really tried, but we didn't try. We just did it, it just came to us, when I'm writing this stuff, I just know what is good and what is not, what is not good enough. And the flow of the songs, Pentagram has always had the very unorthodox way of structuring the songs, and how many times things are repeated and that sort of thing, and it's very intuitive, it's not something that you can plan or you can map out, okay, this is going to happen here or it's there, it's just something that you either have or don't, I guess,
Eternal Life of Madness, that's the title. It sounds like a title for you or anyone who spent time living within heavy metal.
That's one way of putting it, The title actually comes from a line from our very first demo from the song Spell of the Pentagram, and the story behind that is that I was spending some time with my girlfriend in Peru, and I was hanging out with two guys who were like probably the biggest Pentagram fans I've ever met, and one of them told me that Eternal Life of Madness was his favorite line, his favorite verse from that song and from Pentagram in general. And I thought, well, it's a great title maybe for a new album, because the first album was called The Malefice, which is also connected to the demos, so there's kind of a theme there. And Eternal Life of Madness, what it means actually is that the myth of the eternal return, that everything is a loop that happens again and again, but yeah, I mean, it's funny that you say that, because being in the music, business, or in touring bands is a lot of madness a lot of times, and yeah, it's another way of putting it,
It's funny how you're able to connect the past with present day. The album comes out on Listenable Records. What do you think this label will be able to do for the band?
Well, we had a lot of problems with our previous label, I mean, they were in financial trouble, I think, when they weren't really sort of doing their job, and I don't think they were able to actually put out this new record, so we got out of the contract. They let us go, actually, which was kind of them. And I had been in contact for a while. I mean, Laurent is the owner of Listenable Records, and I have been in contact with him since, the 80s, the demo days, when he was doing a fanzine and I was doing a fanzine, We obviously lost contact over the years, but I think it was at a Hellfest that we met again, and we kept in contact. And then he actually released the last Lockup album, and he always, every time we corresponded, about whatever, he always asked me, how's Pentagram doing? Are you writing new stuff? And how much he loved the band, and so on and so on. So it kind of seemed natural, So I would say it was our first choice. I obviously sent the album to a few other labels to see what was there, but it was obvious that no one would match his enthusiasm, and I know they're a small label, but maybe that's good for us, that we are actually not a big fish in a small pond, that kind of thing, I think he's given us a lot of attention, his promo person, both the girl in France and the guy in the US are doing a great job, and just stirring up enthusiasm, and I think, well, it feels right to be there,
Sometimes less is more.
Exactly.
Any touring plans for this new album?
Yes, we are gonna do a small tour of Chile in late April, early May. So this is just around the corner, really, just after the release of the album. And then we have a few gigs lined up in Europe as well in July, which is about just 10 days or something like that. but it's all right for now. I think once the album is out, probably there's going to be more attention towards the band and everything. And hopefully we'll be able to do the festival circuit next year, the summer festivals in Europe. I would also like to return to the States. We co-headlined the California Death Fest. I believe it was like 2 years ago. I think so. Yeah, I think it's 22 or yeah. We went down great, and it's always surprising, from the first time we played Maryland Death Fest, how a lot of younger metalheads have connected with this band. I was waiting for a flight at Baltimore Airport after the Maryland Death Fest we played first. And there were some guys, some younger metalheads, and they recognized me, and we started drinking some beers and stuff, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm really into your band and stuff." And I'm like, "You weren't even born when we did the demos, how do you know about this band?" And they all said, "Just YouTube, we just, they just found us, So it's great. It's great. And also when we play in South America, there's a lot of younger kids who really like this kind of music. We were able to open for Ghosts even, in Santiago not so long ago. And even there, Ghost, it's obviously much more soft and commercial, but people got into it anyway, So I really think this band has something that speaks to people, and it's great. And if we can keep building on that, then great,
Outstanding. I mean, I probably wanted to interview you since '87 when I did my band. So now let's talk some history. Um, the band formed back in 1985. What inspired you to play this type of music?
Well, it's all the bands that we were listening to, It's I remember like it was today the first time I heard the black metal album by Venom, and I saw the cover, and it just blew my mind, It was just, what is this? It's so dark and heavy and stuff, and I was really inspired by that, I played some acoustic guitar at that time, and it inspired me to pick up an electric guitar, and started emulating their riffs, Metallica, Kill 'Em All, Slayer, Show No Mercy, all of that, it all just made me want to play that kind of thing. But you have to imagine back in the day in Chile, there was no thought whatsoever of ever making a career out of it. It was just, let's just do it because we want to do it. Later on, when things started to work a little bit, and when we recorded the demos, then that's when I started thinking, well, I would really like to do this for a living. But back then it was just this teenage rebellion, and this thing that you just really want to emulate your heroes,
Kind of makes sense. And how receptive was your country, Chile, to the music you played and the image you were portraying at that time?
How it was accepted in our country?
How receptive were they? Like, did they get it? Were they like,
Oh, well, the thing is, the metal scene in Chile around that time, when I was doing a fanzine first, and I started the band, and the growth was pretty explosive. It seemed like it connected, like people really felt connected to this kind of music. I don't know if it was the political situation or something because we Chile has always been a very puritanical country. The church has always been very powerful and influential, and maybe it has to do with that as well, to rebel against all those rules and things that they try to impose on you in school and wherever. But pretty soon we had a good crowds coming to our shows. In 1987 we were playing to between 1,000 and 2,000 people, which was insane if you think about it, because we didn't have any publicity in any media. All we did was like go out at night with some glue and post some fucking posters and hand out flyers and outside the record store that had all the imports and stuff. And people showed up, you know. So I have to say that we're very receptive to it, you know.
Not only that, I mean, both of your demos were very popular in the tape trading circuit back in the 80s. How do you look back on those tapes?
Well, that's a thing that's always blown my mind, you know, because even after the band disbanded, because we were only around until 88, you know, and the music kind of took on a life of its own, you know. It kept spreading, you know, and all of a sudden I was seeing pictures in magazines of the guys from Napalm Death or Dismember wearing the Pentagram shirts and stuff, and I was like, this is insane, you know. This I never thought it was going to get that far, you know. I mean, I knew what we were doing was pretty good, and I hoped back in the day that we would get a record contract and everything, but well, things didn't work out that way. But it kind of showed me that we were right and that we were doing something right, you know, and that we were doing something special, you know, because having all these bands like citing you as an influence nowadays, you know, guys from Dark Throne, from At the Gates, from all these bands, you know, saying that they were inspired by our demos is the biggest compliment that you can get, you know.
As I just mentioned, both your demos generated a serious cult following. So how come there was like no label interest like it was in case, let's say, Sepultura?
I don't know. I don't know. It's weird because I remember I wrote to some labels and most didn't even reply. I even got a letter from CBS Records, you know, Columbia CBS, you know, the major label from the US. And I sent them a demo, never heard back from them. But then what happened was kind of unfortunate because when I went to Brazil, I was too keen and too eager to get a record contract. And I signed a contract with the first company that offered it to me, you know, and they sort of kind of disappeared after a while. Well, I should probably have waited and talked to Cogumelo, which was Sepultura's label, or I don't know. I mean, I still have some letters from back in the day, and this guy, I don't know if he's familiar. For you, Monty Connor, who is now in Nuclear Blast and used to run Roadrunner for a long time. I have a letter from him from 87 or 88 where he suggested that we change the name because there was already a Pentagram around, you know. But by then it was kind of too late anyway, and there were personal problems within the band, and it kind of the kind of the magic sort of dissolved back then, you know. It somehow didn't just it just didn't happen, you know.
So what caused the initial split back in 88?
As I said, there was personal problems between members of the band, and I also had the feeling that some of them weren't really so much into what we were doing anymore. You know, they were listening to very different stuff. You know, and I have to admit that I myself found it difficult to follow up with the demos with material that was worthy, you know. Maybe I was too anxious, or I don't know, but and well, eventually I ended up doing different stuff anyway. But it was also kind of frustrating, I think, to see how a lot of bands started getting attention that, I mean, they were just, you know, nothing special really, you know. There were a lot of bands I thought that they were getting record contracts and they were just run of the mill, whatever, death metal or, and I don't know, it was very frustrating that we didn't get the chance. Maybe it should have hung in there a little bit longer, you know, and be a bit more patient. But that's the other thing with youth, you know. You think things have to happen quickly, otherwise you get bored or you get frustrated, you know.
Yeah. Well, eventually you did reform the band, and the old demos were released on CD. There's no, right? Which I still consider your first album, really, because
It is kind of, yeah.
So what caused you to come back and making those old songs available again?
Um, I think it was, well, we did re-release the demos first on a Chilean label in I think it was 99 or something like that. And already, you know, getting the recordings remastered and going through all the old flyers and photos and stuff like that, sort of kind of made us think, I think, that it was unfair how the band had ended, you know, and that it deserved more. And it kind of reignited the enthusiasm that we ourselves had that for that kind of music, I think. And but it wasn't until a few years later when a European label, the Cyclone Empire, the label that released our first album as well, they did like a compilation of the demos and some live tracks and stuff and a DVD and stuff. That we started getting a lot of attention, you know, and people were sort of re-interested in the band, you know, and it made us think, you know, maybe we should just give it another go, you know, why not? And we did a tour of Europe, and we started playing more in Chile again, and all of a sudden it was there again, you know, and it's that feeling, you know, that because it's a feeling more than notes or music, you know.
And to prove that, you had a live record.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Well, this one was actually a one-off reunion show we did in 2001 because I had decided to move to Europe, and I was kind of lost in my life at that moment. You know, I didn't really know if I wanted to continue on making music at all. I just want to start a new life, you know, and so it kind of felt at that point like the last chance to do, you know, to do a reunion and play the songs once more, you know. Little did we know that a few years down the line we would be on stage at Wacken, you know, playing all this stuff, you know. But back then it seemed right, and the vibe was cool, you know. We got along, and the band sounded good, you know, and yeah, and luckily it was also released on CD, you know.
Yeah. By what, 2013, you had your first official studio album, The Malafis. What was that album like for you?
Sorry, what was the question?
What was the album like, especially after all of those trials and tribulations that you went through?
Well, it was a very rewarding to finally be able to say, okay, we made a studio album, you know, and we didn't just re-record the old stuff, which we did as well for the bonus CD or the bonus vinyl in this case. But we, yeah, I think a lot of people actually, and a lot of people from back in the 80s told me, please don't release new material. It's gonna suck, you know, it's not gonna be the same, it's not gonna have the same magic, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I'll give it a go anyway, you know, and these same people, I mean, most of them, a lot of them, the big majority, I would say, said, okay, you succeeded. You managed to capture that same spirit from the old demos in new songs, you know. So that was rewarding. I think if the outcome would have been different, if people would have said, yeah, you know, that not doesn't really sound like Pentagram or whatever, I'd probably be left it at that, you know. But that sort of gave us motivation to keep going, you know. And now this band, I mean, it's, well, we took another 11 years to record a new album, but we did stuff in between. We did some split 7 inches. We did another compilation with some covers and stuff, you know. So we kind of kept active, you know, and it's great. It's we all, I mean, we don't expect too much from this band at this point, I think, you know. We just have fun with it, and you know, and if there's people who enjoy it, then great. And that was actually an eye-opener when we went to Europe for the first time. When we took the band to Europe for the first time, we played this festival called Hell's Pleasure in Germany, and there were people from all over Europe with like hand painted Pentagram shirts and stuff, you know. And then it was insane. It blew our minds, you know, because we never could fathom how the dimensions of the effect that this band had on some people, you know.
Uh, well, you're speaking to one of them.
Okay, great, man.
um, Anton, your oldest collaborator and partner in crime is Juan Pablo Uribe. How would you describe your relationship with him and your musical understanding?
Um, well, we were very close friends. I actually taught him how to play his first chords on the guitar, you know. And he was always very enthusiastic, you know, and we were best friends back in the day, you know. We hung out together, we drank beer and listened to Slayer and all that stuff, you know. But then life happens, you know, and we kind of drifted apart. He went this way, I went mine. And maybe nowadays we're not so close personally. We still are. We still are friends, obviously. But our musical understanding is the special part, because he comes up with riffs that are 100% pentagram, and so do I, you know, and without even talking about it, you know. And it's like he's got that ingrained in his mind and on his hard drive, just like I do, you know. It's like I mean, I don't think there's anybody else could write a pentagram song, but he can. He's the one person other than myself, you know.
Perhaps you passed some of your DNA through those guitar lessons.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I don't want to take all the credit and stuff, you know,
But
but
it works.
it works. It absolutely works. Actually, on the new album, he wrote two of the longest songs, or probably the two longest songs on the album, which are more complex, and they required more arranging and stuff like that, you know. But they just came up with killer stuff, you know.
In addition to Pentagram, you do other things musically. So where else can you be heard?
I'm currently a member of Brujeria. We just released a new album last year in September, which is called Esto es Brujeria. And actually, that's what's been my bread and butter. You know, it's my day job, so to speak. You know, because Brujeria tours a lot. We actually have a European tour coming up, and it's great for me because I those first albums are just insane. You know, this is totally crazy, and the band is crazy, and the fans are crazy. So it's really cool to be a part of it. Other than that, I have a Criminal also, which is a band I formed in the 90s, in the early 90s, which to some people would probably be too modern, you know, or whatever, you know, but it's stuff that I like playing too. We just did a few shows in Chile, and the band is still going. We just do things sporadically because I just don't have the time for everything, you know. And then there's Lockup, which is a band that was originally formed by Shane Embry and Nick Barker. Um, we did an album also, like, came out a couple years ago, which is more like death grind, which is something that I love playing as well, you know. And it's probably the band that requires the most dedication and concentration, because it's really tough to play those songs live and stay locked in with the drummer, you know. But that band is kind of inactive right now. There's there's things going on that I can't really talk about, but I hope that we will resume activities at some point, because as I said, I really enjoy it.
Finally, what are your hopes for the eternal life of madness?
Um, it's difficult to say. As I said, I don't want to get my hopes up too high. You know, I don't want to think that we're gonna be the next Slayer or whatever. You know, but I think it's a really good album, and the reactions that I've got so far have been pretty good. You know, so I hope it will kind of help establish the band on how can I say, on on the middle region of the festival flyers. I hope that we can get to play more, and to actually get these songs out there and get, I don't know, infest more people with this pentagram virus.
Sounds good. Good luck with the new album.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
All right.